I was like, how the hell do I fit these two worlds together? Like
Hmm.
porn and semi-professional? Like,
Right.
what? And it finally hit me this year after I was a coach on set for...
Welcome to the AfterMeth podcast. This is your host, Dr. Dallas Bragg, a former crystal meth addict, now sobriety coach. Join me on my mission to increase awareness around the epidemic of crystal meth among the gay male population and create a repository of resources for current and past addicts, as well as and especially for their loved ones. This is the AfterMeth. Trigger warning, this podcast will contain discussions pertaining to drug and alcohol misuse. If you feel triggered to use or relapse, please call SAMHSA's national hotline at 1-800-662-HELP. Also, if you are new in your sobriety journey and you feel like you could be triggered by discussions around drug, alcohol, and sex misuse, please do not listen to this podcast. All right, now on with the show. All right, welcome back to the AfterMeth podcast. I am happy to have my new buddy that I met on Instagram. I go out, and when I see someone on Instagram that I just catches my eye and makes me listen for more than 5 seconds to a reel, then I will zero in and pester them until they come on my podcast. So, but it wasn't too hard for you, Alex. It wasn't too hard to get you to agree to work with me. And I've really impressed by your generosity and your willingness to be open to talking with me, because I see you, I have a tendency to see people on hierarchies, and I shouldn't. But in Instagram and social media these days, it's easy to look at followers and engagement and say, oh, that person's never going to pay attention to me. But you did right away, and I appreciate that.
Of course. Of course. I'm so happy to be here.
Good. Well, Alex, welcome to the AfterMeth. If you're listening and you love the podcast or you just started watching the podcast, please take time to rate and review. And if you would do that, then I could stop saying it every single podcast. If you would listen and go do it. And it will get into the algorithm and get in front of everybody that it needs to get in front of. But really happy with the growth of the podcast. You guys are really getting the word out there, and it's all across the globe. And I'm just happy. I'm happy for the feedback that we're getting. There are guys that are saying, listen, you're the best cock block ever, is what they say to me, because they get triggered. They want to go party. And some of them will just turn on the podcast and listen to my horrible voice on the podcast and my guest. And all of a sudden they don't want to have sex anymore. Isn't that nice? So whatever it takes.
It's a compliment within an insult there.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
Whatever it takes to keep you sober. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself to us? Tell us what it is you do as a coach and anything else that you feel is important.
Sure. So, hi everyone. I am Coach Alex Ray. You can just call me Alex. I'm an intimacy coach, and I help queer people get what they truly want in dating and relationships and sex, whether it's casual or committed or anything in between. And things you should know about me. I grew up evangelical Christian. I had a lot of shame and guilt from my upbringing that, without giving everyone like too much of a shocker, like that led me to the super depressed path. I was on and off medications. I tried to end my life in 2017 and thankfully was not successful in that. And it was the process of coming out of that and finding the right resources, the right therapy, and the right coaching that I got to where I am today. Would not be here on my own. And I'm really thankful for the people who invested their time and energy and non-judgmental love to show me that who we are authentically, me, you, everyone listening, is enough exactly as you are right now. And so I feel like that's kind of the core message that's always underlying all of the work that I do.
Wow. I love that there is someone in the queer community saying that, because we all need to hear that.
Mm,
We
yeah.
are just enough the way we are. And how do you help someone embody that? How do you convince them after? How did you convince yourself after years of I'm sorry, evangelistic Christian,
Evangelical Christian
evangelical
bullshit.
Christian? Yeah, I grew up
Yeah.
Pentecostal holiness,
Okay.
and so many of the gay guys that I talk to that go into crystal meth, they have a lot of religious trauma.
Hmm.
How did you get through that? How did you work through it?
Well, the biggest turnaround for me was after I hit my rock bottom. Going into, I obviously had to be in an inpatient facility
Mm,
after I basically ingested a bunch of stuff that
mm,
should have killed me, and I like miraculously did not die from it. Uh,
mm,
and so I had to go into the hospital first to get um, you know dialysis and everything to get my body back to like functioning totally fine on its own. And then I
uh,
had to be in an inpatient facility. And it was those two facilities, being in the hospital, being in the inpatient facility, that was the first kind of crack in that mindset. Because for the first time, I wasn't working, I wasn't like earning money, I wasn't
mm,
performing, I wasn't doing things in
mm.
order to get people to like me or care about me. I couldn't. I was stuck in a fucking bed, like
Right.
doing nothing. And somehow these strangers cared about me and they showed me so much kindness
Mm,
and love. And that was the first time that I realized, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe there's a possibility that it's not what I do that gives me value. And then another
mm,
big crack in the mindset was in a therapy session a couple weeks later after getting out of the hospital. Uh, my therapist and I found what I like to call an idea seed, a super
mm,
simple thought that can be put into just one sentence that grew in my mind into a really prosperous, like oak tree, really thick, sturdy trunk, lots of branches. And it became the way that I thought about the world. And so what I didn't realize is
mm,
that a lot of my thought patterns that seemed totally random were actually affected by this tiny little seed that had planted and rooted all over the way that I
mm,
thought. And that
mm,
seed was, I am not enough.
mhm.
And that belief came from religion because I was told that uh, all my good works are but dirty rags to the Lord. Love that verse. Uh, I was told that like I'm such a disgusting piece of shit
Mhm,
that God decided to murder his own son in the most disgusting, gruesome way possible on a cross, and be tortured to death that way, because that's what it took in order to like atone for how horrible I am. And so, many other things, obviously, but those two messages really stuck with me
mm,
that, like, okay, who I am at my core is
mm,
horrible.
mhm,
And I need to constantly be atoning
mm,
for, even though I knew religion told me there was nothing I could do,
mm.
I needed to at least try my best to atone for being so terrible. And then you add being gay on top of that, and that
Right,
was,
right.
yeah,
No death on the cross can make up for you being gay.
none. Nuh-uh. How can we make it even more torturous? That'll help, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah. That what I've never heard it put that way in terms of a seed that branches out and affects all of your beliefs, because that's what I try to get down to with my clients in meth addiction is there is a belief in
Mm-hmm.
your core that's affecting your perspective on the world, that's affecting
Yeah.
how you think, how you react, and it's affecting your relationships, your work relationships, your romantic relationships, your friends, how you see
Mm-hmm.
yourself. It is, if you can uncover that, you've unlocked not just sobriety, but a different way of living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the other core ones that I've heard are like, I'm not worthy,
Hmm.
I don't belong,
Hmm.
uh, I'm unwanted.
Yeah.
Those
Hmm.
simple one sentence beliefs have an enormous
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah. 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 I'm not wanted. That's mine. That's my flavor of I'm
Mm-hmm.
not enough. I'm
Yeah.
not wanted. And yeah. Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Well, you you uncovered that and you turned it around. You changed your,
I
what did
did.
you changed, you put a new seed in? What, how did you,
Yeah.
you uprooted that one and planted a new one? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it had to start with first recognizing, is there any way that we could see that this idea is not true? And whenever you're trying to deconstruct any of these beliefs, it's really helpful to start with just questioning the idea from whatever
Mm,
perspective you're starting with. So for me, I was currently at that time, uh, totally invested in Christianity still. And so my therapist had to approach it from that same lens in order for it to be effective. Telling me that like all of that was made up and doesn't matter wouldn't have helped. What she did was very helpful, and she had me question, well, wait a minute. There's another option here. What if you're actually so enough, you're worth dying for? And I
mm.
went, huh, well, that's much different than like, I'm so disgusting, someone had to die for me.
Oh.
I'm worth dying for. So that helped flip it
Mm,
without me having to change much of my worldview.
mm,
And then over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 years, and even what are we I'm doing some quick math here. About almost 7 years later now,
mm,
that I'm still every now and then I find what's this random feeling of shame that I'm having, especially when
mm,
it's something like sexual, and I gotta go, oh yeah, wait a minute,
mm,
that's that's religion still.
mm,
Or when I realize, why am I anxious in my relationship that when I haven't unloaded the dishwasher? Oh yeah, because I'm worried that I'm not enough for my boyfriend and he's going to be like too upset with me because I'm behind on chores.
mm.
And then the whole relationship is going to end because clearly he's with me because I'm good at loading the dishwasher. I'm not enough
Yeah.
on my own. And then I have
Right.
to go, oh, it's that thought again. It's
Yeah.
I'm not enough. And usually
Mm,
I don't try in that moment to like double down and fix it because that adds
mm,
more shame. I
mm,
usually just start in that moment by going, oh, it's that thing I do. Okay. I can laugh at it. It's not a big deal.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. Awareness, being aware of it
Mm-hmm.
is really the key, right? It's just,
Totally.
yeah, being aware that's there. Well, I have to really, there's no segue to this, but
I know, right?
I'm looking, I'm looking at your everything that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
reviewing it too before the podcast. But we talked about your OnlyFans,
We
and
did.
I, and I thought it was so interesting. If I ever subscribe to an OnlyFans, it's going to be yours.
I'm
Um,
honored.
I well, for one thing, I love that it's $7.77. I don't know.
Right.
I love that part for some reason. But to hear you describe it, I think it's interesting. I think that
Mm-hmm.
um, if you could talk about your OnlyFans, why you have it, how it fits into your
Yeah.
coaching, but also I want to highlight the fact that you're having a lot of sex, like
Mhm.
good, s- like good
Eye
sex.
rolling in the back of my head sex.
Yeah, like hot sex, sober, because you're
Yeah,
completely sober,
I'm
right?
totally sober. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you do that?
Yeah, right. I love that question.
Yeah.
Uh, well, that's like kind of what my work is all about. Not every, it's a lot of what my work is about. Um, so yeah, I'll give everyone like a little sneak preview because I don't want you to leave yet. I want you to stick around for this, but I will tell you all. We'll get to the part where I tell you how I had the most amazing for my first collab video that I ever did on OnlyFans was one of the most wonderful like highs I've ever had. And I didn't actually even ejaculate on that one. So
Wow. Wow.
uh yeah, that was really cool.
Hmm.
But to start at the beginning, I think because of growing up evangelical, I've always had this curiosity about everything that it wasn't allowed. And so like the porn world has always been really interesting to me. I also naturally just really see people as people rather than as uh, objects or somebody being like all bad or all good. I think we're all humans. And uh, so that kind of approach of my natural approach of curiosity and like little to no judgment, I've always just been interested. I kind of really wanted to know porn stars. I wanted to know the people that were outcast from society, and I wanted to like hang out with them. I wanted to hear about what it was like to be them and what it was like to be in their world. And I did uh, work with some of them in my coaching and had some on my podcast. And I was like, man, this is really cool. And I can't remember if it was either before that or after that um, that I started my OnlyFans account. Like I registered. It takes a couple days to a couple weeks to get all the paperwork sorted out on their end, because they are very careful about making sure you're of age. But that was more than 2 years ago now. And then I didn't know, how do I fit this into my existing brand of coach Alex Ray? Because what I do in coaching has always been this talk about things. I use a lot of metaphors. I use some uh, somatic work where we work with your body. I even do some like mediumship too. I have clients that are really spiritual and enjoy that stuff. But I was like, how the hell do I fit these two worlds together? Like porn and semi-professional. Like what? And it finally hit me this year after I was a coach on set for Davey Wavy's Himeros. Davey and I co-wrote a series together called Enough, and it's a 12-part series about eroticizing uh, different ways gay men don't feel like they are enough and flipping it on their head to show that you are enough as you are authentically. And after hanging out with the porn stars for a week, because we do it like a retreat, I was like, oh my god, that took away all the fear that I still had about getting into this world. And I finally saw, okay, 2 years later, now I know how this fits into my work. And the way it fits in is people learn a lot about sex from porn. And I have always done teaching behind, like in my coaching about sex, but why not give people videos that they can see explicitly what it means to behave this way, to do these things in a sexual way? And why not also meet people where they're at? Like, who doesn't want to learn while getting off?
Never really thought about learning, coupling the two. Yeah. Learn while you jerk. Learn jerk.
Exactly.
Or whatever. Yeah. Interesting.
So there's a long little journey to
how
I started it.
And so in your what makes your OnlyFans different than
I call it content that you can learn from and get off to.
right?
So
So what are we learning? We're learning intimacy.
you're learning intimacy. Uh, there's a few different series I have planned. So the first one was all about creating emotional, intimate, vulnerable connection with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I have a couple other series that I'm happy to like spoil, give everyone a little preview of what's coming. I am going to be doing a series on like mindful masturbation, ways to really
Yes.
connect with your body and your mind and have like
Mm.
a wonderful orgasmic eruption
Mm-hmm.
rather than just like a quick jerk and go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not that there's anything wrong with that. I love all kinds of getting off.
No, I want to stop there because mindful masturbation is a huge topic for us.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come out of a meth addiction, our sexual template is deleted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because meth just deletes it, and we have to, we're pretty much starting over.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have my clients do, and I've practiced, I'd love to hear more about your take on it, but
Yeah.
it's mindful masturbation, and that's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of not using porn actually, and coming up with scenarios that turn you on that aren't, that aren't tied to meth.
Yeah.
Because when we have meth sex, it's taboo, it's dark, it's gang bang, it's whatever,
Mm-hmm.
cum dumps,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. That could turn you on, but when you're trying to start over,
Yeah.
you wanna be turned on by sex and not think of meth right away. So
Totally. You
mindful
don't want to get
masturbation,
triggered the moment you try to go
right,
masturbate.
right. So for me, I envisioned the man that I wanted,
Yeah.
and I envisioned the sex that I wanted to have over
Mm-hmm.
and over, as I would masturbate.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would come, sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes I could get hard, sometimes I couldn't.
Yeah.
But it did give me a lot of practice for, as you know, like now I'm actually in a relationship. And
Yes.
oddly enough, this man looks a lot just like the one I kept picturing. So I think I manifested him.
Hell yeah.
I think I manifested him. Um, so it's interesting. I think that mindful masturbation is something that you don't hear a lot about, and that you're doing a series of it. I think I'm sending my people to you for sure.
Love it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of the things that I'm going to be doing in that series are going to be helping people get off to themselves, to be turned
Mm.
on by your body, by your mind, by
Mm.
your you. So we'll work with things like what you can see in the mirror. We'll work with things like your own body smells.
Mm.
Getting off on your own pheromones is really fun.
Hmm.
Getting off on even connecting with shame. And there's some really cool
Mm.
things that you can do that are very, oh my God, the word's escaping me. Um, doesn't matter, whatever. It's when you turn one thing into another thing. There's that example of like turning lead into gold.
Oh, alchemy.
Thank you. Alchemy is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Phew. You
Yeah.
can really alchemize shame
Alchemize.
into a really powerful orgasm, and that can be really fun.
I want to know
So,
more about that. Sign me the fuck
right?
up for this.
Right?
I'm in it.
And then another
Yeah.
series that I have planned is going to be taking the like more risky sex scenarios
Mm-hmm.
and doing educational pieces on how to do it without the same level of real danger.
Yeah.
So ways to get to have a really really hot kind of a non uh ass up face down kind of a scenario
Mm-hmm.
without actually opening your door to anyone and everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had friends that have been assaulted that way, and so I
Yep.
really want people to be able to see, oh, I can still act out a lot of these fantasies, but there's a way that we can do it with more safety and more consent. uh, that can still be really, really hot and give you the mental stimulation, the thrill that you're looking
Yes.
for.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love this. I love this. This is perfect. Honestly,
Yay!
this is perfect. This is more perfect than I thought it was going to be.
Yay!
um, because the thing is that, the question that we have to ask meth
Mhm.
coming out of a meth addiction is, what turned you on before meth? Right.
Mm.
It's kind of a go-to question that we get. Well, for one thing, some people have never had sober sex, so
Mm.
they don't know what turns them on. But some
Yep.
people say, look, I'm still turned on by being a cum dump, by
Yep.
an anonymous whatever. And so this is a way you can still have that, but not this whole thing of putting an ad on Craigslist with your address or, or whatever on
Right.
Grindr, and anybody comes,
Yeah.
or sniffies when you can sign up for these,
Yep.
orgies or whatever. But this is safe. This is still getting what you need, but in a safe way. And I just love it. I love that you're doing
Yeah.
this. This is so needed in this community. So
Thank
needed.
you.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Great.
I would so love to welcome in more addicts so that they can
Yeah.
see like, oh, hey, cool. I can still enjoy sex after meth.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Um,
That's the biggest inhibitor. That's the biggest question always. Because it fuses together. Meth and sex fuses together, and you take
yeah,
meth away, you take the sex away. So then you have nothing. You have no libido
right,
for a long time, and then anything sexual gets you triggered. Um,
totally.
and not only that is meth addicts come out of their addiction traumatized. They're
Hmm.
traumatized by gay men. They're traumatized by what they did.
Hmm.
And so one thing that we try to teach them to do is establish intimacy as a beginning step. So
Yeah.
what you're the intimacy coach. Is there any, without giving away your coaching, of course, but what would you say to someone who just right out of an addiction, they're really trying to make it in recovery, and they're scared to death of intimacy? Where would you
Hmm.
start with them?
So I would start with what's the lowest risk relationship you can experiment with more intimacy in.
Mm.
Uh, a lot of times, uh, if we take it, let's go to a completely different scenario, just so and then we'll bring it back. Uh, I think it's sometimes easiest to see it outside of ourselves before we apply it to ourselves. So if somebody's working through, uh, if somebody is trans and they've recently discovered that about themselves, and now they're working on playing with their gender expression, wearing different clothes or trying out makeup or going by a different name is going to be really challenging to do right away with your closest friend, because your
Mm.
friend or your family members, whoever, has in their brain like a file folder of all the things that make up Alex. And if all these things are being contradicted, now that's a huge ask for them.
Mm.
And they're probably not, even if they're super accepting and loving and trying their best, it's going to take them a moment to understand and get on board, and they're probably going to make a lot of mistakes.
Mm.
But if I go out to Target and I'm walking around in stilettos and I
Mm.
like and a full beat face, like
Uh,
there's none of these strangers know me. For all they know,
mm.
like this is my everyday. They have no
Mhm.
idea whether this is my first day or day 1000.
Mm.
So the same thing happens when we're talking about intimacy. A lot of times it can be a lot more challenging, especially for people that are in like long-term relationships and are trying to work on more intimacy with like their partner.
Mhm.
That can stir up a lot of fear because there's such an attachment there,
Mm.
versus a friend would be a step further away and a stranger would be a step even further. So I would recommend, if you're trying to start out practicing intimacy, find some baby steps that you can do with someone that you don't know super well. It could even be like your barber, or it could be the Uber driver. And you could just start practicing opening up about how your day is actually going. If you've been having a shit day, tell them, honestly, it hasn't been so great.
That leads me to the question of what is intimacy? Because we think automatically intimacy involves sexual expression or sex, but what isn't? How would you define intimacy?
I would define intimacy as authentic connection between two or more people. It doesn't have to be sexual. It doesn't even have to be physical. I think it's typically easier for a lot of gay men to start with the physical intimacy.
Yeah.
But because those are tied so close together, especially when we're talking about somebody that's a recovering addict and wanting to like figure out intimacy without substances, then it's going to be really hard to start instantly just having a physical intimate connection with somebody. It's going to be a lot easier though to practice. I mean, it's still going to be challenging, but it could be a lot easier to start with emotional intimacy with someone first. And that also is what lays the foundation to have true physical intimacy.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting into that vulnerable place, establishing trust with your Uber driver or whoever, right? That's going to give you practice, it seems like, to get into vulnerability when you went into an emotion or a romantic type relationship, right?
Yeah. Because if you think about like anonymous sex, if you're just a cum dump and you don't even see the face of whoever is coming inside you, so I would say that has the least amount of intimacy possible, right? Because you're not, there is no being authentically yourself with that person. The only thing that you are with that person is purely a physical body, just a physical whole. And so there is some level of vulnerability there. You're naked. And there's some level of like physical risk there, but there's no emotional risk because you don't even know what they look like.
Right. So risk is what we're looking at too.
Yeah.
Taking a risk emotionally.
Yeah. That's a great way to say it.
Yeah. Sharing something that feels risky, scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be 10 out of 10 scary. We like start with like a 1 or a 2 or maybe a 3. You're going to frustrate yourself and be discouraged and want to quit if you try to do 10 out of 10 every time.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The other big hurdle for a meth addict is, and one of the reasons we get into it in the first place, is our self-confidence. And this ties into your podcast. You can plug if you want.
Yeah, the Queer Confidence podcast.
Queer Confidence podcast. So, you know, I think in the community, the way that it is in terms of the mainstream community, it can be difficult.
The mainstream gay community we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
It can be difficult to have confidence because you're kind of expected to look a certain way, to be a certain way, to travel, to have all these friends, to have the picture in Puerto Vallarta at the whatever, at the resort and with your 6-pack. And so social media has been such a bane of my existence in terms of coaching men to get in recovery, because what I'm finding and what I found in my own life was, downloading Grindr was the beginning of the dominoes that made me relapse into crystal
Sure.
meth.
Hmm.
But I downloaded Grinder because of a picture I saw on Instagram.
Right.
And a picture I saw on Instagram made me feel insecure about myself and triggered my thought of I do not belong, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, but it also contributes to a lot of a lack of confidence in ourselves. So what could you give like a, I don't know, a beginner's guide, a 101, if I want to start today to begin to build my self-confidence, what would you say?
I love this. I got 3 simple steps for this because
Okay, good.
this has been like the core of what I've done for years. Uh, First of all, I also kind of I'd like to define confidence as uh, the certainty in yourself that no matter what, you're going to have your own back. You're going to be kind to yourself. Uh, so the going over to the 3 steps that I've been teaching for a while, the first step is being willing to be uncomfortable. So if you want to grow your confidence, uh, like at, let's say, some kind of like gay gathering, maybe it's on Fire Island, all right? And you know, oh, okay, here's this group down the beach that I do not feel comfortable around because I'm worried that they're going to be judging me the whole time.
Yep.
You could decide, okay, well, I'm going to be willing to be uncomfortable going into this crowd or just walking by this crowd. The second step would be to take action towards that discomfort. So if it's uncomfortable for you because you're worried that they're judging you or you're judging yourself, whatever it is, you're feeling like you're not good enough, they're so much hotter than you, take action towards it. So taking action towards it would be going and walking down the beach. You don't even have to necessarily interact with them. We're just trying to build the confidence a little bit here. So maybe we just walk by the group. For those that are not really that scared by it, okay, maybe your assignment for yourself is to go introduce yourself to one of these guys who you think is hot and intimidating. Right? Like I said, though, it doesn't need to be 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
so if
yeah.
that's a 10 right now, like dial it back. And then the last step is have your own back. So that looks like being kind to yourself on the other side. It looks like preparing ahead of time, knowing, okay, I'm going to do this exercise because I want to work on my confidence. And I know that my brain is automatically going to come up with a lot of asshole comments to say to me. A lot of fear is going to probably hit. I'm committed, though, to reminding myself that it's not necessarily true. And this is just my insecurity talking. It's just the fear talking. And I'm going to get over this eventually. So then putting it all together would look like, okay, I see that group. I know that I want to work on my confidence in this area. I'm going to go walk down to that group. I'm either just going to go walk past them or I'm going to go introduce myself to someone. No matter how it goes, no matter what they do, we don't really give a shit. As soon as we get back to our spot, we're focused on, okay, I did that. I'm proud of myself for doing that. That was a step in the right direction. And second, any of these like nasty thoughts my brain is coming up with, they're not necessarily true. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. What is true? Such a powerful question, right? Because what is true in that situation? What is true is I walked down and I walked back. I did what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
What they think of me, you don't know. So you don't know what's true.
You did not
right?
ask them. You do not know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So baby steps, guys. Baby steps and being kind to yourself, right?
Yeah.
And knowing that this it's a process, right? I mean, it took I think what we have a hard time with is understanding that because it happened so quick, you lost your self-confidence a lot of times because of a 30-second comment your mother made when you were 5, right? Like I had a friend with an eating disorder because of one comment when she went to go grab another biscuit at dinner and the mother said, "No, you're too fat for that,"
Ugh.
or something like that. That one comment, it's taken her a lifetime to undo. And I
Right.
think that we just feel like it's unfair that we have to work so hard to undo these things. But to build your self-confidence, it's a building, right? It's a building process, patience,
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I think going back to the very beginning, like remember that these little idea seeds
Mm-hmm.
become they
Mm-hmm.
plant really, really sturdy trees,
Mm-hmm.
different like thought patterns that are pervasive throughout your mind. So uh they're not when you discover it, it's not silly. Don't make fun of yourself for it. Like it's normal. It's
Yeah.
very normal. And it's going to take a long time to overcome that tree because you don't have the luxury of a chainsaw. You've got like a pair of
Mm-hmm.
scissors, and it's going to take a
Mm.
long time to trim
Yeah.
these little branches
Mm.
before you upgrade to some loppers, and then eventually, you might be able to take a chainsaw to it.
Yeah. 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 I love that. Great. You work with couples too, I
Me
notice,
too.
to restore intimacy, to help them find more sexual spice. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. I go ahead. Sorry.
No,
No.
what were you to ask?
Well, I have a lot of couples. There's some couples that come to me. They've both in recovery from crystal meth. They're trying to figure out how in the hell to proceed because
Mhm.
their libido is tied up in meth as well. When they think of getting turned on, they think of meth. Um,
Sure.
they're trying to figure each other out again and really
Yeah.
learn what turns each other on. Then I have couples that are one is an addict or one's in recovery, one isn't.
Hmm.
Have you dealt with that? What would you say to what would you say to a couple who has been through a meth addiction together? Now they're starting
Okay.
over, and how do they establish any type of new intimacy or learn each other again?
So I don't have personal experience yet working with
Mm-hmm.
a couple in one of those situations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I would start with is I'd first want to know what's your current like relationship agreement? Are you monogamous or non-monogamous? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's going to make a big difference on
Mm-hmm.
where the direction I'd recommend we go to start. Because remember when I said earlier, it's easier to practice with a lower pressure
Yeah.
um, person. If they're non-monogamous, if they're open or whatever label they use, then it's going to be a lot easier probably
Mm-hmm.
for them to work with. Obviously, if they're working with someone like you or like me on the core of their relationship,
Mm-hmm.
that probably is the foundation. I would not do this on your own. You're good,
Yeah.
like nothing like this on your
Yeah.
own is going to go
Yeah.
that well.
Yeah.
Get get support. And I've always feared getting support throughout my life, but every time I do get support, it goes so much better and
Mm.
so much quicker than when I try to do it on my own.
Yeah.
So after you have the support already, then if they're non-monogamous, uh, I would say there are things that they could experiment with someone who is sober and preferably someone that either has been sober for a long time
Mm-hmm.
or someone that is totally sober. They've never even used crystal
Mm-hmm.
meth before, but they
Mm-hmm.
have compassion and understanding for someone who has, so that they can come into the sexual experience with compassion and understanding, no shame, no guilt, and give the whoever's in recovery the opportunity to experiment with someone who is already very comfortable with sober sex. Um, that way, it's a little bit less of like the blind leading the blind, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
If they're monogamous, then I would uh, I would recommend, again, you gotta get some kind of outside support. Just trying to do that in a silo, just the two of you, is a recipe for disaster. And I wouldn't want to see a couple
Mm.
who matches so well but they try to go through this difficult thing and then it breaks them up. And like, that would be a tragedy if all you needed was just a little external support to get through it together.
Yeah.
And it would probably look like some really structured, intentional sexual practices together where you both partners are taking little baby steps towards intimacy, into baby steps towards being turned on again, baby steps towards eventually reaching an orgasm without any substances.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it would help if they did like a dual mindful masturbation, like, masturbating together, maybe talking to each other without the porn. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think now that you brought that up, I think it also could be really helpful for them to work individually on masturbating on their own, and then talk about it afterwards. What was that experience like for each of you? What did you notice? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? What worked well? What didn't really work well? Because they could also learn from each other's solo masturbation. And then together, like you recommended, masturbating together could be really powerful. But I imagine depending on how much shame or insecurity is built up, being intimate with each other, being sexual with each other without any substances could be really challenging to start with.
Yeah. 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 Another time, patience, consistency. That's kind of the theme. Everybody I ask on these podcasts, that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah.
It's a process. Patience.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are you seeing in your work with gay men? Is it only gay men? Trans?
I work with anyone. I work with anyone in the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. I do also work with non-queer people, but primarily with queer people.
Yeah. What are you seeing as the main issues right now in your work? Like, when people come to you for help, what are you seeing as the trend right now, the main things that we're facing as a community?
I think that some of the biggest things are the impact of social media. It seems like everyone feels disconnected, but then they feel kind of bad for feeling disconnected because they're like constantly connected with everyone. But it's not real. It's not intimacy. It's just like very surface level connection or artificial connection. Like you talked about with people posting their photos in Puerto Vallarta, like we don't even know if that's real. We don't even know if that's the house they were staying in or not. We don't even know if that's their body as it looks in real life or whether that is face tuned to hell. So that any kind of artificialness takes away from the intimacy. That's not authentic, therefore it cannot be actual intimacy. So with couples and with singles, it seems like a lot of people don't even know how to get back to they're searching for a feeling, and that feeling is what I would label as a feeling that comes through intimacy. But I don't think they know the word intimacy. I don't think they know that what they're looking for is the feeling of vulnerable, intimate connection. But a lot of people are craving something more in relationships.
Yeah. I think we're confused on the word. Yeah. I mean, is that a challenge for you in your work in terms of, having people understand that what they're looking for is intimacy when they don't really understand the word itself?
Totally. I mean, also, I've been playing around with like the wording that I use for a while. So using the intimacy label is just something I started this year. We'll see how it goes, and then I may have to switch up the marketing as I see like what, because like, from the business side, it's most helpful to meet people with the vocabulary where they're at.
Yeah.
Even if you and I know what it is on the back end that we do.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I will admit, it's only been in the last year where I've really landed with me what intimacy was. I just didn't, I just thought it was like tantra sex was intimate. That's intimate, but right. I didn't realize it was, I had to tell people stuff,
right.
That was like, I have weird boundaries, I don't know. There's weird boundaries that I have about like you're saying, I would be more apt to tell an Uber driver some big secret, than I would, my, a close friend sometimes.
Well, in a case like that, it would be more helpful for you. You're like easing into it. It would look more like something that's not really that scary to tell. It's a little bit scary to tell, but start with the close friend. Because you can kind of adjust the fear factor with the person, or you could adjust the fear factor with the information that you're sharing.
Yeah. Another big topic among my group, my peeps, is erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
So do you help either couples or guys kind of overcome that, because it's all up here, right? Unless it's a physical thing, right?
Right.
Do you help people help guys overcome that, and how?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
Well, for your friend's information, yes, I love working with people on ED. One of the things that I think more people need to know about ED is how normal it is. And how marketing of medication has shifted people's perspective to think that it's some kind of like problem with you, rather than just something that's normal and happens with penises. They just sometimes don't get hard. Like that's super normal. And usually the overwhelming amount of the time, it's not something that you need medication for. It's just something that is mental. And what people don't know about the medication is the medication cannot force an orgasm. You still have to be mentally aroused in order to get the orgasm, or sorry, not orgasm, get the boner. Your dick will not just automatically become erect. You have the medications make blood flow easier. And guess what? None of the medications also like target just your penis. So like it makes blood flow all over your body easier. If you took Viagra and then went and worked out, your arms, you'd be like, damn. Like if you did a bunch of curls, you'd be like, oh my God, my arms feel like they're going to explode. I'm also not recommending you do that, because that could be potentially very unsafe to do. So I think the education piece is really missing. A lot of people just don't understand how normal it is. And after working on a porn set, I can tell you that most porn actors are taking Viagra. They may also be taking an injectable, which sounds so painful to me. But,
no, we're familiar with that in the meth crowd.
Perfect.
Trimix.
Okay.
Trimix.
And what's the other one? There's another one that has a very similar name. Something else, Max. Whatever. Trimax, though. If you're using, or a lot of porn models use Trimax. They use, I almost said Discovery. They use, oh my God, I just said it. What the hell? Girl, why am I sleepy and losing my words?
You've had a long day.
I have. Viagra. That's the word I'm looking for.
Viagra.
because they have trouble getting hard too,
Yeah.
because they're humans. And
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
porn, there's a whole crew around. You've got these hot lights pointing on you. You've got a
Mm.
camera pointing on you. You've got a
Mm-hmm.
film crew, which
Mm-hmm.
is anywhere between one and like 6, 7, 8 people in the room. They're
Mm.
just watching.
Yeah.
And then you've got to perform with either yourself or your other scene partner. So like there's a lot of pressure, and that is what kills the boner.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
all of
I
that to say it's very normal, and the mental
yeah,
stuff is what to work on.
it's normal and the mental stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, so I'll share a scenario, and it's me.
Great.
But I had trouble, for 6 years with ED, big AfterMeth, and my seed, my branch thing was that I am not accepted, and that also there's in that not accepted, not belonging is rejection, right? That's it, right? Rejection. So in meeting this guy, the guy that I manifested in my imagination, in my mindful
Yeah.
masturbation imagination, um, we we got naked, we were doing our thing, and just like clockwork, here's what happened. When I figured out, when it was clear that we were going to have sex,
Mm-hmm.
I started to wither.
Yeah.
Because I equate having sex with never seeing the guy again, because that's what
Mm-hmm.
happened to me for years on meth, and after.
Yeah.
We would have sex on the first date,
Yeah.
and he would never come back. And so that happened. I backed off. I got off him, and was in my disappointed whole pouty thing was starting over. I was just going to leave. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Anytime, I haven't had sex in so long, but before that, as soon as I would start and get soft, I would just leave. So I'm like, it's over now anyway.
Right.
Um, but he knew what to do intuitively. Intuitively,
Yay.
this man grabbed my face, pulled me in, and he said, "I'm not going anywhere." 4 words, "I'm not going
Mm.
anywhere." And I got hard as a rock when he said that to me, because it was just like, wow, all of this stuff just kind of melted off. The space opened up, and it was just like amazing. And
Yeah.
it was all up here
Yeah.
the whole time. I just needed the right person and the right environment and the right space to feel safe and to be
Yes.
reminded. I mean, it was too soon for him to be saying something like that, but it was perfect. Perfect for me,
Yeah, it sounds like it
So
came at exactly the right time.
yeah. So I just wanted
But
to share that as an example of to really underscore what you're saying here.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that example, because one of the other things I notice is a lot of people feel like they shouldn't need any external validation. That's a really, really American, westernized way of thinking. And it's fucking bullshit. We do need external validation.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
we need internal validation. You
Yeah.
need both. It's not
Yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah.
And it's really, really helpful when you do not have the context or the understanding about what's going on with yourself, or the ability to reassure yourself, to have someone externally who can tell you exactly what you need to hear in that moment. And sometimes you're going to find that amazing magic man that you manifested who just knows what to say with no prompting.
I know.
And other times it takes an uncomfortable approach, but that works really well, which is if you can find what it is, the thought pattern that's happening, then voicing that to the other person. And that might not be something that you can do in the moment, at least not to start, but to tell them, hey, I realize that in my experience, if I don't get hard, then like it's over.
Mm.
I could really use some validation right now. Or
Yeah.
what do you think about that? An
Yeah.
open-ended question really gives your partner, whether that's a hookup buddy or that's just a one-time partner, or a long-term partner, or anything in between, it gives them the opportunity to give you the assurance, the validation that you need in order to start breaking down the old belief.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought up that example.
Yeah, I'm glad that you are talking about it and expanding on it, because it's helping me see more. Because as time has gone on, I was talking to you about this before we were recording, is that I have found myself being hyperfixated on what was that facial expression he just made? That means he doesn't like it. And all of a sudden I'm not hard anymore, right?
Right.
Because I'm 48. Like I don't get as hard and like I used to. It's
Right.
easier for it to go away, and especially when it's so tied up here. So
Yeah.
I have, and we've talked about this, and we've decided I will next time. But I have been kind of hesitant to say in the moment, "Hey, that I misjudged that reaction, and now I'm not hard anymore. Can we take a break, get it back?" And if I would say that, to me in my mind, I thought that it would ruin the moment.
Right.
But he said, no, I'm okay to workshop in the middle of it. He said, is
I
what he
love
said.
that. I like this guy.
I know, he's the adult here, and
Yes.
he's 25.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Daddy's son is not about
yes.
actual age.
Yeah, exactly. He's the emotionally mature son but yeah, I
Love
mean,
it.
he's very much like, open to all of that, and just being patient with me, because
Yeah.
he doesn't have the meth past that I have. He doesn't have the trauma that I'm bringing to this.
Yeah.
And so I
But
think
he
it's
doesn't
important.
need to be able to have he doesn't need the same experience in order to have compassion.
Yes, right. 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 Yeah, and the unconditional acceptance of everything that I am. That's enough for me to get hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now imagine
Yeah.
if you did the thing that's supposed to ruin the moment by speaking up, and then he's
Yeah.
gives you validation in that moment, and
Yeah.
talks with you as long as you need. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I know.
Talk about, typically that ends up,
Yeah.
boom, boner is
Yeah.
ready to go.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Alex, what have I not asked you today?
Well, we've been
That
edging them for the entire episode
Yeah.
about this first video where it
Yes.
didn't come, but I was
Yes.
high
Yeah.
for days. So let's give him that answer.
Okay. Yeah. Let's give him that.
Uh, the first person that I recorded with for OnlyFans is someone that I knew through go-go dancing. We're not super close friends, but I know him well enough to know a little bit of his character, and I knew that he would be a good person, that I would felt comfortable with recording. And the first series, this naked series, all about emotional vulnerability, we play a strip game where we take turns asking each other questions that require vulnerable answers. As we answer these questions, we validate each other, and we take off an article of clothing until we're naked.
Okay.
So I had no idea that speaking up, I mean, I did know, but I didn't know how much. Speaking up about the things I was truly insecure about. And one of them, dick size, which a lot of us guys have, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And having him validate, the moment he took off my underwear and looked at my dick, my heart stopped for a moment. And I don't remember the exact words he said. I wish I did, but it doesn't matter. Whatever he said gave me such assurance immediately that he liked what he saw and was turned on by me.
Huh.
And that instantly was like, ah!
Yeah.
And
I love
that's
that.
just one example of like, because we did 5 different questions. So I
Mhm.
got to share 5 different things that each time made me nervous. Like, what if this is the thing that he rejects me for? Each time him validating me. And then to end completely naked, physically vulnerable that way. And then like making out. We ended the video and just I was like, wow, what was that? And for the next several days, I felt amazing because I knew that someone who I thought is attractive found me attractive, even while seeing the parts of myself that I'm insecure about and that I think are too ugly for people to see and still be attracted to me.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I was
It's really
literally,
amazing.
but it was like 2 or 3 days later before I really started coming down from that high. It was incredible.
And we can see this on your OnlyFans.
Yeah,
right?
You can.
So yeah, would love to see the reaction.
Yeah,
the
it's
and
good.
the whole situation. That's interesting. I love that.
Yeah, and it's a game that you can practice playing with anyone.
Yeah. Talk about some intimacy,
right? And I've had 2 of the videos ended up afterwards. We were like, should we do a full sex scene together? Let me tell you what, some of the best sex I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because there was nothing left that was like, oh, what if they find out and they're gonna judge me?
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, here I am. I just like exposed myself, and they're like hard and wanting me, and I'm wanting them. And
oh wow.
I think the thing that we don't realize is that when somebody else shares something that you think is vulnerable or courageous, do you think more of them or do you think less of them?
Yeah, more of them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we forget that the same thing happens when we share something that's vulnerable. People don't look at us and think, oh, what a piece of shit.
Yeah.
They think, wow, I'm attracted to you even more.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by you even more. Like, hurry up and stick that dick in my mouth.
Right. Yeah, there's some people out there, though. You share something vulnerable and you get called insecure or you get called high maintenance. And I'm talking about me. First, and when I first came out, there was I guess I just really picked the wrong fucking people to try to date, but I would try to say something vulnerable, and this one guy, he's like, why don't you just go write that in your journal? And but anyway, when you have that, then you just develop this fear of being too much, of being insecure, of ruining the moment, a buzzkill, cock block, whatever. So that's healing, very healing to be able to say that in a space and it be validated, I'm sure. Yeah.
Also, the only people that tell you that you're too much are people that are extremely insecure themselves and have no room to recognize anyone else's insecurity.
Yeah.
If they were confident in who they are, they could give anyone reassurance no matter what it was.
Yeah.
The only reason they can't is because they're extremely insecure about something similar or the same thing.
Yeah. Thank you for that. We need to hear that. Well, Alex, I have loved this episode. Very useful.
Too.
Very useful. I would love for you to also come back when you have your series, your additional series available.
Yeah.
I would like to expand on mindful masturbation for sure. Absolutely.
It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, I want to do that. You can demonstrate for us too if you'd like.
I love it. Let's do it.
Why not? Why not?
Well, it won't be. I don't know if you put this on YouTube. They won't let that on there, but
yeah. It's on YouTube. We'll
there you
blur
go.
it out.
They'll just yeah. There you go.
We'll blur it out.
That'll be the one you put behind the paywall.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Thank you. If you want to join in the conversation or ask Alex questions, we're going to put all of his info in the show notes. You can also post your question on YouTube. You can also post questions on Spotify, or you can just email me. I will pass the question on if you don't want to contact Alex right away. We also have a website, aftermeth.net. And please join our Facebook community, which is the AfterMeth Podcast Facebook community. Just go to Facebook and search the AfterMeth. Make sure it doesn't correct it to Aftermath. Please go back and change the A to an E, and you will be able to find it. I promise. All right, guys, we'll see you all next week.